Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So they just pass. Yeah. Yeah. See that? We can try. It's just going to record
All right, so we're about to start our showcase in a few minutes. If you can listen to me for a sec here locally, so please just everybody come here. You can just leave the computers running and so on. If anybody's still in VR, get them out. This is the real part. Basically, although it will be live streamed on Zoom. So what I'd like everybody is basically grab a chair and just kind of sit around in a whatever you kind of shaped space, something like that. And someone is bringing a chair to me. Thanks so much. Yes, I'll be moving around, so I'll need one of those. You can sit in front of the screen, just don't stand in front of the camera. Basically, and we won't need this here. We need one more chair.
How do I introduce myself?
Teaching assistant or doing your PhD student? Just looking for another USB port. Oh, we don't. Oh, whatever. Is there another USB port here somewhere?
I don't.
No, everything is okay. Then I'll just need to use the keyboard to move forward and back. All right. Question. Yes. So to So basically, what we try to create is basically a showcase that is open to visitors who are here locally in the Lower Mainland and can come here despite all of the flooding. But we also want to give people who are remote a chance to listen into this. So we are live streaming the thing on Zoom. Basically, it's been advertised in social media and on the website and so on. So we might have a few people joining on Zoom. So welcome. We already have a few. Yoo-hoo. The other reason is I wanted to also record this. And so basically I'm using Zoom both for live streaming and also recording. So later it'll be online. Yeah. Any other questions before we get started? I think I have my screen here. Can we change the lighting here? Oh, no. Cinema? Oh, no, that's a bit dark. Yeah, that's probably the best we can do in this room. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So I'm Bernhard Riecke here. I have the honor of teaching this class on immersive environments, and we have Onoy here.
Hello, everyone. I'm Onnoy. I'm a PhD. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm a PhD student in Wolfgang Schurzlinger's lab. Sorry about that. And I am happy and fortunate to be a TA of this course. So I think that's it.
Yeah. So Onoy also does research as part, virtual reality as part of his research. Okay, so just a quick introduction to those who are coming in remotely or see this online or later on video. So yeah, I'm Bernhard Riecke. I lead the ispace lab here at San Frese University and had the honor to teach this class on immersive environments. And this is our final showcase. It's a fourth-year class, so people had basically 13 weeks to design interesting, meaningful, transformative experiences even. One of the big challenges was, of course, okay, how do you actually do this while you're in the middle of a pandemic? And we had no idea whether we would need to switch online or not. So that was a bit of a challenge. And I think our students did amazing. What I tried to do is actually to not lecture for 2 hours straight, because I think it just doesn't really work that well. Can you get rid of this menu here? So one of the things what I try to do in this class is basically practice what we preach here. Okay, perfect, thanks. So in virtual reality, what I try to teach students is to really do this iterative improvement testing and really this rapid cycle. And what I try to do in this class as well is use the same feedback. So the idea was basically that students hopefully learn both inside and outside of the classroom. We try to connect this. We partially flip the classroom. So instead of Onoy, even though he could teach all of this Unity work, how to use the game engine, we actually used a lot of video material readings and so on. So in the classroom, we hopefully could do a lot more interesting things, connected this through what is sometimes called just-in-time teaching. Just in time means I get feedback 24 hours before the class starts, and then we try to adapt the class almost in real time based on user feedback. And users are our students, of course. And the idea is really then if you read, you don't just read, but you have a purpose with it. So you have to do something with it. You have to apply it. You watch a Unity tutorial and then you directly do something with it. And then we have the challenge and honor to try and adapt the class as much as possible. And the idea is really to help people kind of quickly climb up this Bloom's taxonomy ladder. So it turns out, especially if you have a completely mixed classroom, some of you have a lot of experience in virtual reality and Unity already, some not at all. Often it works best if we learn on our own the first steps basically, and then in the classroom we can actually apply it. So how do you make all of this work, especially if you don't know? So we didn't know this was the first class after the a year and a half of online teaching where we're supposed to come back in person, but we had no idea, basically on short notice, it could all switch back to online. So what we try to do is try to teach and design the course in a resilient way. So we use lots of different tools, and there's a lot more that we used. Unity was the game engine and VR engine that we used, but a lot of other ones. One other challenge is, of course, like, how do we actually engage people? I had to teach a few classes remotely because I wasn't there, and then my TA wasn't in the country yet. And so how do we actually do this? So one of the things we did was use an online whiteboard called Miro and ask people a lot of interesting questions. Like, first of all, like what kind of culture do we actually want to create in this class after a year and a half of pandemic? Looked at different design inspirations. And as you can see there, we have lots of creativity in this class, which I really appreciate. And of course, we thought a lot more about, okay, what's really unique and special about virtual reality and how do you really utilize that? It's still, virtual reality is, yes, it's wonderful, at least the idea is. In reality, it's still a lot more technical effort. So how can we really make it worth it? And so we came up with a lot of specific affordances and what really makes virtual reality unique. Something that has been described as the ultimate medium. What that means is really, at least in principle, you can play a game, you can read a book, you can meet somebody, you can have a conversation in virtual reality, but not the other way around. So you cannot experience virtual reality by reading about it or thinking about it or playing a game about it. It also allows for really high replicability, complete control over what people see. One thing that's interesting is you can actually have a private experiences in virtual reality, even on a plane or in public spaces if you want to, although you're still observed, but your experiences can actually be private, which opens up a lot of opportunities, as we've also seen in the showcase. One thing that's often mentioned is that you can get a first-person experience, not necessarily somebody else's, but you can see what they would see, you can hear what they see, and then you might even feel a little bit of what people might feel. You can also, of course, provide other third-person, disembodied, whatever experiences. One thing that's often mentioned is immersion, spatial presence, so really the feeling of being there, but also the plausibility illusion. So the more you are in there, the more you might actually respond and act as if this was a real thing. And of course, one thing that is key for virtual reality is really the possibility to have interactivity, to have agency, engagement, and even empowerment. And what you can do in virtual reality is simulate possible, but also any kind of impossible, just about anything you can think of and program you can try and do. So you can bend reality in a way. So in a way, it sounds like this is all positive, but of course, there's lots of possibilities. Like any powerful medium, it can also go completely sideways. And we explored this also quite a bit in class and was quite proud of our students here and how deeply they went in terms of looking at where virtual reality can go sideways. So we looked deeply into the dark side of virtual reality because I think you can learn a lot from this. Here's just some examples like the neglect of reality, for example, violence. What happens if you have a negative, potentially traumatic experience in virtual reality? Basically, the more realistic, the more immersive, the more powerful the technology gets, which is definitely happening right now, the more we actually need to take care and almost protect the user. So we even asked our students like, okay, what do we really need to make sure that this technology is used in a way that actually makes sense so we can prevent all the negative things that could happen. So here's just a few examples for this. Went through lots of different frameworks, like sensory immersion, basically not seeing the physical world anymore, imaginative immersion. That's really what's happening in your mind, like when you read a good book, a strong narrative. And as we've seen this also in many of the projects here, as we'll show in a moment. In challenge-based immersion, that's what's happening a lot with computer games. So basically, the more you know, the higher the skills, the more the challenge is also increased. Looked at game design frameworks as well. But the course design challenge for this semester, what we ask students to do is really to use immersive experience design to contribute to meaningful solutions to real world challenges. And I think our students did an amazing job there. What does it mean? So we ask people like, okay, what is a topic that you and your team really very deeply care about that would help create a better world? A topic that you care so deeply about that it might actually be worth making a purposeful, transformative, immersive virtual reality experience out of this. And this gets us to the idea of really using virtual reality as a way to solve real world or any kind of problems. And one way to do this is to design from the inside out. So what that means is really to think about the real purpose, the underlying challenge, and then align all the different tools and tips and tricks, whatever we have, together to create a consistent experience that really portrays this. And as I mentioned, virtual reality is still kind of challenging. There's a lot of extra technical effort involved. Not everybody has it. You might get motion sick. So why actually bother using virtual reality? In a way, you could use it, and I think it's especially powerful if you use VR to let me go somewhere I couldn't otherwise go, be someone I could never be, to do things I could never do, and also to experience and really feel something meaningful that I couldn't otherwise easily do. And to be able to do this, we also looked into transformative experience design frameworks, where the idea is really, okay, once you're in a certain situation that creates perceptual dissonance, then you might accommodate and have a bit of a cognitive shift. And what that means is really that you realize, like, okay, what you just experienced isn't consistent with your worldview anymore. So if you can, of course, kind of ignore this, or you might actually have a behavioral change, because we don't like cognitive dissonance or any kind of dissonance, really. So yeah, I'm quite proud to present this online showcase. So we just had an in-person 3-hour physical showcase where people could try things out. And so we have 7 different projects that we'd like to go through. To show this briefly, we have lots of details on this on the website. So we spent about 10-15 minutes interviewing each of the different teams. And there's lots more information also on the website, including links to the individual teams or projects websites, their posters, their trailer, and we'll add more information about in a week or so. We'll add the full project videos, so you can see more information there. All right. And let me switch to a different slide deck so we can start here. And I'll hand over the computer to Onoi. So what I'd like now is to team 1-1. That's the project Moto. And yes, you can clap. Any way you like. And yeah, just want to take the chance to interview everybody. Just make sure I switch my phone off so it doesn't disturb me. And you're taking a timer, basically. All right. So what's the main idea of the project? I think, Reese, would you be able to take that one just to start?
Sure. So originally, kind of in regards to impact and sort of back to how you were explaining that these projects came to be in the first place, we were focused on the idea of, something that, I mean, what I use VR for as sort of an experienced VR user a lot of the time, particularly during a pandemic and being isolated inside, was to have kind of an escape, to have somewhere where I can go that's different, but not wacky and insane, even though that is fun sometimes, but somewhere to relax and reconsider a lot of seeing something very small that you take for granted in reality, but seeing it replicated in virtual reality and thinking a little bit, not necessarily just about like, oh, they actually put that in, but like, oh, I wouldn't have thought about that otherwise. I would have just completely ignored that thing in reality. But because I'm in virtual reality, I'm thinking more about it. So just a space that was designed for meditative kind of self-reflection and appreciating these smaller nuances of everyday life, and hopefully bringing that back into reality to make our reality that we're living in right now a little bit nicer, is generally what
Yeah, thanks. I'm just going to continue there a bit. I mean, we live in the Lower Mainland here on the West Coast, so every few blocks there is a yoga studio, meditation studio, and there's nature surrounding it. So what is really the special affordance or opportunity of virtual reality that goes beyond what you could do by just going out there and meditating on your own? You can you can answer that, or anybody else.
Does anyone want to answer that?
I can take a whack at it. I think a big part of it for us with this project was more about like reclaiming our home spaces in some ways during COVID, especially a lot of places that were very personal, sitting at your computer, your own desktop and everything. It was a personal space that was just pleasure previously, but over the course of the pandemic has become your school space, your workspace, and virtual reality especially allows us to reclaim that space and to be able to escape while still like remaining in the same spot. Sure, you could go down the street and go to a yoga studio, but as soon as you return home, that's still your work area if you're not reclaiming it in some way.
Yeah, thanks. So let's take a look at your project video. So I asked students to create a short project trailer, just less than a minute. So let's take a look at this.
Alma Oto. Immerse yourself in an auditory experience set at the depths of the ocean floor. Experiment with sound and experience sensory immersion.
So as usual with virtual reality experience, it's hard to really get or understand the experience without being in it because it's immersive. I realized I completely forgot to ask you to introduce yourself. So maybe just your name and what was kind of your key role in the project.
Hello, I'm Ryan. I worked with sound and a lot of the initial ideation of the design of the project.
Hello, I'm Alex. I worked modeling some of our assets as well as retrieving them.
Hello, I'm Kibi. I mainly work with the modeling stuff.
Hello, I'm Jiangwan. I was doing with the sounds and also I was doing some documents.
Hi, I'm Reese. I did the development work and some modeling and stuff, just kind of odd jobs.
I guess lots of shaders. All right, so it's an unusual experience, like, and it's underwater. Why did you choose an underwater scene, and how does that support the main idea? You okay answering it, or?
So what we were going for was pretty much like a very calming space, and then we thought where would be the most calming and quiet space a person can imagine, and then where would be a place that has a least amount of people, and it was pretty straightforward from there. It was like on the water, obviously. Yeah, of course.
Originally with like the water drop idea, we were thinking about using rain primarily and gauging people's sort of connotations with rain. I think particularly where we live, there were a lot of perceptions about rain being intrusive and cold and annoying and kind of just like a blockade between like you and your walk to work. And so we still wanted to have this idea of like the interaction with water droplets, which is kind of part of guiding this underwater thing, but then also everything that was previously said here, a lack of people, like for instance, with the rain idea, we were like, oh, maybe it's in a town or something, or more of like an open area with houses, but then as soon as it's deserted, you're questioning why are there no people, and that becomes uncomfortable. And so we found a happy compromise here where a lack of people didn't make it seem strange, and also it still incorporated this water stuff in a way that was less intrusive.
So maybe for people who haven't tried it out yet, like what do people actually do in the VR experience?
Well, the VR experience is mostly like you get to explore at your own pace. So the idea is you wake up or you go to sleep and you wake up in this dreamscape like environment. And as you explore, you'll find different objects that you can interact with in different ways, as well as water droplets falling from the ceiling. And you'll notice that if you put these different objects under the water droplets, they'll make different sorts of music. And that's the main interaction.
Yeah. It's almost like a playful interaction that I guess in Vancouver we have enough rain. We could do it outside, but most people don't do it. So you give them a chance to really try out something different. Yeah. So we talked about different frameworks on imaginative immersion, sensory immersion, challenge-based immersion, transformative experience design, and so on. Like, how did you incorporate those in this project to really support the overall goal?
So for our project, our main attraction is the sensory part. So we are really focusing on the sound. First, we are using the waves, and then we evolve into like this underwater, this fantastic imaginary space. So it, yeah.
Yeah, we definitely focus on the sensory immersion with the sound. It's not only is it each of the water droplets makes its own unique sound, but it's also spatialized audio. So you'll be able to tell where the water droplets are based on where you can hear them from, as well as Reese did a beautiful job with the shaders. So it's very immersive in the visual aspect as well.
So if you had another few weeks to work on the project, what would you do? And or what did user testing basically tell you which direction you could go?
One of the biggest challenges we've had is having immersants be able to identify where all the water droplets are as you continue the experience. One thing that we've now found is that it becomes more and more difficult to locate additional droplets due to due to the spatialized audio, due to the audio increasing as you progress through it. So being able to find additional ways to guide the immersants towards these last few water droplets so they can really have a complete rounded experience rather than getting halfway through it and then saying, it's too challenging at this point to locate additional ones. I think there was a bit of challenge-based immersion that we didn't intend in locating those. And early on in the design process, we made a decision to try to kind of avoid some of that challenge-based immersion, but unfortunately it ended up still creeping in there, which can help in some ways, but I think detracts from our original intent.
So ideally, what do you wish people take away from that experience?
So we understand that because of the COVID pandemic, everybody is stressed, everybody feels pressured, a lot of mental disability cases increased. So we want people who participated in our project to feel they're relaxed, more calm, and then they're kind of make it so they got kind of more exactly. Yeah.
I think just to continue off of that, what we were proposing was a strategy for doing that, which is leaving this experience and taking a closer look at some of the things that are happening around you on a day-to-day basis and finding ways to derive kind of simple joys from these things, offering that as a strategy to sort of assist with this stressful environment or this sort of inability to reclaim what was once your own kind of area for doing your own thing.
That's interesting. You used rain because right now in BC we had basically 3 record rainfalls and atmospheric rivers coming in. So did it change your relationship to rain in any way, or the way you look at it, or you even enjoy it if you're not directly being flooded yourself?
I almost think that it was kind of the opposite. The rain that we were recently having was making it more difficult to kind of work and think about this, like having to go outside, hear rain all day, and then when I go home, having to look for raindrop samples to constantly hear raindrop. It definitely made it a little grating.
No, you also tried out the experience. What was your impression from it?
So I already shared with the group, but I did feel that it was a little bit on the darker side than I would have liked, or maybe more bright plants would have made it a little bit different, but I really like the sound effect. I really like the outdoor watery effects and the feeling and the environment, which was pretty good.
There was something fascinating when you go into the experience, and in the background you see a bit of game footage or VR play footage. for me, there was something almost magical right at the beginning, basically, when you're transported into this underwater world. You see these beautiful caustics on the floor, almost feels like floating in this environment. So I think it was really a good usage of sensory immersion. And I would argue there's actually also a lot of imaginative things going on, because that triggers really a lot of thinking and reflection, or just noticing and calming down of the experience. And I think we're at the end of the time for the first project. So thanks so much. Great. So I'd like to, the team 1-2, well, they're just numbered by workshop, to just take a seat here. So that's team Invisible War. And, all right, so this is our second team, and let's just start with a quick introduction, your name and what your main job was in the project.
Hello, my name is George. I do some modeling and editing.
I'm James. I work on the poster website and the audios and some modeling.
Hi, I'm David. My job is video modeling and interactions in Unity.
And I'm Bruce. I mostly focus on all the document works. And yeah.
Great. So let's take a look at the project video.
It has been a while since COVID happened all around the world. Some people have already decreased their attention on health protection. People in third world countries are still being seriously impacted by the virus. So we want to invoke people's attention by acting as the vaccine worker and seeing what they're doing to help save the world. The user acts as a doctor to learn about the knowledge and the impact of COVID-19 and to vaccinate people against COVID-19.
All right, so I'm not going to ask you why you picked this project, because COVID is on everybody's mind right now after almost 2 years of a pandemic. What I would like to ask to get us started is basically, okay, why do you use virtual reality to do a project about COVID, basically? So what's special about virtual reality, and why did you use this?
Because we think that, like, as you said, COVID is like it's related to everyone, right? Especially it affect us, like bringing us like a large impact in the past 2 years. We want to try to using VR to educating people. Like we want to try to bring in like a sort of like classroom onto VR, because we think that in the future, if you want to make study or like a school more advanced, VR is one of the technology that could make it more fun and make things happen. And we want to use this as like a kind of like a beginning step, starting like process to make like a VR classroom or something. So we have tried to put a lot of different kind of information inside this game. And because why we choose COVID is that it's related to us, right? So we think this is like a good topic to combine with VR classroom, so that we can try to succeed, like try to achieve the VR studying. In the meanwhile, spreading our message that we should still protecting ourselves, because some people, even they got the vaccine, they are still dying every day. So we just want to combine these all important message together in like a educational form in VR. Yeah.
So who's your intended audience for these VR project? Is it just everybody, or you mentioned education? So is it kids or adolescents? Who do you have in mind?
I think it's just the people who taking vaccine but I think knowing nothing about vaccine, so we can tell him how this works and why is it so important.
So whether they've taken vaccines or not, basically anybody who doesn't quite know enough about COVID, is that the idea?
It's the guy that doesn't quite know about them, I think.
So, I mean, there's a lot of information about COVID out there in terms of you can read up a bit. There's blogs, there's videos, movies, all of these kind of things. Like, what do you do differently here in virtual reality compared to? I mean, it looks as you can see, it looks a little bit like you're stepping into a museum initially, so you can read about different aspects, and then you also has a more interactive part. So yeah, tell me a bit more.
So we think it's kind of more attractive way to educate people. How does this information, how does the vaccine process is done by a doctor? So most people do not have a chance to be the doctor to finish all the vaccine process. So this kind of way to educate them and to show them the process.
If we could give more information. So in the meanwhile, we are trying to like evoke people, like reminding them why do they take the vaccine, by they trying to take the vaccine to the patients, like reminding them why they are going to take the vaccines. And also more important, we wanted to focus on people who are still not only taking vaccine, but maybe sometimes wearing masks or social distancing. We all know that there is always a group of people trying to not doing something or trying to do something. So we wanted to maybe tell them because every of our small actions, our decisions is actually making impact to the society. We want to let them know that if in this kind in this moment, if you are doing like this kind of small things, it actually changes the society. And yeah, that's why we are more focusing on, we are reminding people who are already doing well, but in the meanwhile, trying to encourage people that may be not doing so well to do well as well. Yeah.
Thanks. So as I mentioned earlier, so virtual reality, as any design, is really a lot about iterative testing, improvement, listening to user feedback. So what did users tell you so far? So you did a few tests in the previous weeks, and today also you had different people.
Like user feedback.
Well, they have many good feedbacks. One I want to mention is we have huge scenes, and what if we can scale down the scenes and easily to find the informations? Like we have one tunnel instead of the whole hospitals, and then we goes to the ends that have rooms that can take vaccines for others. Yeah.
Now, if you had a bit more time to work on the project after all the feedback you received, what would you focus on and why?
Because I did more document stuff, so I know more about it. So if we got more time, we actually want to build like a more like a complete, like as I said, like a classroom, right? We want to build like a complete hospital or complete environment that can have like step by step talking about different kind of information. In the meanwhile, maybe having more interaction with those NPCs, because right now it's more like a kind of like an information stage, and then entering to a kind of like a fun stage. But we want to, if we got more time and resources, we want to kind of combine them together so that people can interacting with each other, having fun, while maybe getting in touch to different information. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, virtual reality is just one part of the overall experience. As in any good experience, it starts basically long before. Like in theme parks, they even have priming tunnels and the whole pre-experience, but there's also post-experience. What do you have in mind for that, or how could you add more of this if you were to iterate on the project a bit more? And how could this basically enhance the project?
the improvement?
So basically, you have Unity, you have the VR experience, but the actual user experience starts long before. Like you come in, you talk to them, why do you even put a headset on? So what do you have in mind for the real world pre and post experience? So the transition from real into virtual.
Oh,
Like in the previous project. We heard, for example, that okay, there's a narrative, there's a premise, so you basically kind of wake up and realize you wake up in this underwater world. What kind of pre or post experience do you have, or could you imagine for your own project that could strengthen the core, the main idea?
Because our design concept for this project is kind of from micro to micro, like from a huge environments like in a universe to like a cities, countries, then in a rooms for one specific peoples, you take vaccines for them, and then we go to like the bloods, which is even more smaller. That's so it just like kind of like it's like a step by step, like to immersing experience for our users, for our viewers.
Okay, yeah, so let's thank the team again. And okay, so thanks a lot. So next up, I'd like to invite T13, that I think is Habitual Hero. So grab a seat. Okay, so I'd like to you to basically just introduce yourself quickly, your name, and kind of the main things you did for the project.
My name is Morgan. I worked on website management, narrative, and all of the writing documents.
I'm Christy. I did the storyboard writing, the narrative design, and what else? Oh, and the video.
Hi, I'm Cheon Park, and I mostly work on working on some 3D asset and some few animations and a little Unity, some interactions.
I'm Alice, and I worked on light setting, storyboard, and some animation and environment design. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Kelvin, and I worked on the Unity and the VR development as well as graphic design.
All right, thanks. So let's take a look at the project video.
Hero Tech. Our company is looking for one candidate to receive our acclaimed superhero serum. To be eligible, we need to see if you are the right fit, and you must participate in a short test. Are you interested?
So superheroes, how did you come up with the idea of heroes, and like how did that happen?
From the get-go, our group's plan was to try and do something that had to do with helping people, and finding a narrative took a little while for us, but we think that this idea was able to effectively show from our pre-VR and post-VR experience, we're able to show that generally the concept is that you don't need superpowers to be able to help someone, and it's all just about acts of kindness and being compassionate and empathetic towards the people around you, as well as the environment and any way you can have. And framing that in a superhero mindset makes it a little bit easier to digest, we think.
Is there also research on superheroes in virtual reality and so on that you based this on? Do you remember any of this? Yeah, there actually is some really interesting research that people have done that if you play a superhero in virtual reality, basically take something from that experience into the real world afterwards, so people actually become more helpful. So it's actually nicely aligned with that. So basically your project matches that perfectly. So what do you hope that people really take away from this experience?
I think that in the experience, we wanted to show that like even the smallest actions can impact people's lives. Like one of the examples in our interaction is like helping a little girl get her toy airplane back. And then we were thinking that maybe when we were younger, someone did that for us, and then maybe we can impact their lives. So we're just kind of hoping that people kind of take inspiration from doing the little things in this game into the real world. Yeah.
So we also want to expect the audience to pay more attention on their surrounding environment to see like how can they help the people in there, or something that's people normally don't notice it that they need help, but like actually they could help it if they pay a little more attention to their surrounding environment.
Yeah, that's a really good intention. Now, I'm wondering, or people might wondering, why virtual reality for this, right? I mean, we live here in Surrey, so you can go out and just, there's lots of homeless people around or anybody who needs help. So why use virtual reality for this experience?
I think this experience can be done in virtual reality because what I believe kind of solidifies that more is the pre and post VR experience. So in our trailer, that is part of our pre VR script, which is offering people the opportunity to be a superhero, or to receive a superhero serum, and taking that concept and making them do a test and see how they react in these situations that they're given. And initially, yeah, they could just go outside and do that, but some people might help by picking up litter. Some people might help someone cross the street, but sometimes people don't always think of that. So this is a way that we help solidify and try and make people a little bit more aware of their our surroundings in a more interesting way.
So if I remember correctly, so initially you tell the user, okay, you're being tested whether you're fit to get the superhero serum, but at the end there's a twist to it that there isn't really any superhero serum. Can you explain that a bit more?
I'm doing a lot of talking. Well, we thought that it would be a good way to spread the message of not needing our message is that we don't need a serum to be a kind person. And in this experience, the person themselves, they don't have any superpowers. It's just doing regular tasks like picking up litter, picking up a mailbox that fell over, helping the little girl with the airplane. So we wanted to really show that you don't need to be able to fly to be a good person. You don't need to be really strong. You know, you don't have to be like a stretchy person or anything like that. You don't have to be a Marvel superhero to be a compassionate person. It's about the traits that you have as in your character, not physical abilities that you can do.
So you're basically using virtual reality for people to almost trick people into playing the superhero until they realize like, oh, well, okay, actually, I don't even need to be in VR. I can do the same thing and there's no serum. Yeah, interesting. So I'm sure you did a lot of user testing and want to hear a bit more about the kind of feedback you got and how you use this to improve or still improve the project in the future.
So there were some challenges to let the players know this is the task and this is the mission. So we put some sound and voice dialogue into the NPC so they can know, they can get some guideline while playing it.
I would like to add up that if we had a more time to work on it, we will maybe try to add some more detailed animation for the people after each task, for some giving people some more like a fulfilling kind of emotion after helping, like a rewarding system. For example, like the plain one for the girl, maybe we could add some more detailed animation that girl play with the plane again than what we could have done it. So like maybe, yeah, so maybe we could add some more like a detailed animation for like a reward system for like fulfilling emotion for the audience.
Just to add on to what Jay said, so we do want to add, like, if we had more time, we would add more complex interactions, like rather than just like animations, we would hope to have more kind of interaction from the user. And also just to like explain the game a bit right now, what's happening in the video. Right now, the person's picking up trash, and our whole concept is just we're doing kind of like a morality test, and we're just seeing how many of the good deeds like the user actually goes through to see if they're suitable for our serum. But then in the end, there's not actually a serum. It's just kind of like to get you to be a better person.
So often shift and change happens in very specific moments. And also part of what we did in this course is try to sharpen our thinking about how to design for these specific moments. Are there any specific ones in your experience where, based on your either your intention or from what you heard from the users, that this is really where some kind of shift happens?
Well, I think originally we wanted to focus on how to properly navigate witnessing a car accident. That was the original concept for our idea. And we wanted to put a main focus on that. But as we continued and through a lot of our user testing, we realized that the most impactful one that people liked the most was the plane and helping that girl. So I feel like a lot of people really enjoyed that. And we had someone today give feedback that just said like that they enjoyed the simple acts of it, like even just picking up the trash was enjoyable to them because they were able to like kind of get it from there, and how there are all these little hidden things to do. Because I think in total there are 6 interactive things in the environment, but most people will just do the 4. And it's kind of the more you look, the more you do that. So I think having that element of interactivity, especially with the plane one, was where most people found the most joy and happiness, and that might just be from helping a little kid.
To annoy for the timekeeping. Do we have time for? Okay, then you also tried out the experience online. What's your take on it? Like, what is your user experience?
I did feel that the interaction gets in the way. I knew what to do, but how to do it, I wasn't sure. Like pushing the wheelchair, the person on the wheelchair, the interaction or the guidance of the experience wasn't clear enough. Picking up the phone from the floor was pretty hard because the actual floor was getting in the way. So some of the interactions did get in the way of the experience. Otherwise, it felt pretty good.
So virtual reality is a lot about tweaking and kind of manipulating. I think the idea worked really well, and there's lots of things one can improve about this. What is the most interesting user experience that you heard from people? Yes.
Like I said, I think a lot of us were surprised after our user testing from last week, where most people, through our survey, most people said again that the plane was their favorite, when that was one we just kind of added in, where we're like, oh yeah, we can just have a kid help. And then having the idea of I know Che is a lot shorter than some of us, so she literally has to like jump up into the air and grab that the plane. Does anyone?
Going to dig a bit deeper. Like, what was it about the interaction with the plane and the child that's different from the other interactions and tasks you can do?
So the interaction with the plane is more like a related to the what we actually do in the real life. Like Morgan just mentioned, like a tall people could just easily grab the airplane and give it to the girl. But for my case, who had a really short height, like had to jump to grab the plane and give it to the girl, which is a little bit more connection to the real life what we actually doing to grabbing some stuff from there. So in that moment, our team felt, wow, there can be some more like some connections between what we actually usually do in the real life in the VR. There's some connection between that, and we could implement that into the work too.
It's almost like having to do a little bit of effort in VR might actually help as well. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much for this fascinating project. Right. That was Habitual Hero. So next up we have team 1-4, Waste of Space. Right, so I'll ask you to introduce yourself briefly, who you are and what you did in the project.
So my name's Carissa. I did a lot of the documentation, a little bit of a design as well at the executive summary.
My name is Cedric. So I basically doing video editing and also web designing.
Hi, I'm Brandon. I did some concept and narrative design. I also helped out with the Unity development.
I'm Daniel. I'm mostly working on the graphic design and the 3D texture.
I'm Ish, and I mainly worked on the programming and the Unity file.
All right, thanks. So let's take a look at the project video.
In the year 2060, Earth's orbit could be a junkyard of satellites and rocket parts. Over 22,000 pieces of debris in orbit, and those are just the ones we are tracking, which will be a threat to the safety for astronauts and the future of space travel. You are an astronaut hired by Space Y. With the most advanced technology, you go to their space station to collect debris.
All right, nice trailer. So I think you picked your project idea before the recent incident, like a month or so ago, when the Russians shot one of their own satellites, and there's now thousands of actual new pieces of debris floating in the orbit. So how did you come up with that topic, and why did you choose it? It's not necessarily on everybody's mind right now.
Okay, the topic of space pollutions that is not often brought up and not everyone even notice or aware of these kind of issues, since the space pollution is outside the Earth. And instead of focus on an issue that is not prevalent at this moment, and it is more about generating awareness to prevent the problem that will occur in the near future.
Add to that a little bit. So yeah, the initial thing we started with was the overview effect. So we were really interested in that, where astronauts go out into space and they see Earth, and that has a change impact on them when they return to Earth, and they care more about it. But we wanted to flip that on its head and think about, what if Earth wasn't beautiful? Like, what if it was like resulted of pollution? And so that's where we came to the space pollution idea. And from our research, we found out it's already becoming a problem, but it's not, even among people who are interested in space travel, even some of them don't know about it because it's not a very like attractive topic. But so that's where we reached the space pollution idea. And then we combined that with the overview effect to give you a reverse effect of like, oh my God, this is terrible. How can we fix this from happening?
For those who might not have heard it, right now the ISS is actually needs to shift their location a little bit back and forth, and they just had to cancel a 6-hour spacewalk because there is actually too much debris out there. So maybe tell me a bit more, like what do people go through, and how does that relate to the overall idea of the project?
Yeah, so you can see in the video, like the people will go to the space station. They'll see a brief video about the company, so that's what they're working for. And once they go outside, they'll actually see the space and like all the debris that's surrounding it. But yeah, that's what they go through.
So that's kind of what's happening on the outside. What's happening on the inside, basically? So as part of this course, we had this kind of multi-layered storyboard, basically, in terms of, okay, this is happening in VR, this is happening in the real world. What is happening on the emotional level and on the cognitive level? Does anybody want to?
Yeah, so basically the main thing is it's supposed to, I guess, generate awareness of the space debris issue. And also because with the company, we're making it sound like they're a good company, but then you see like their practices and how they're dealing with like the space debris. So basically, it's supposed to get you to start thinking about like how these companies are carrying out their practices and how the issues are becoming like a major issue. And if nothing's done about it, then they will become like a prevalent issue in the future. And it's basically just to get you to care about the issue.
Yeah, we'll get into that as well. So the reason we chose a fictional private company was because, like, I don't know, a while ago, NASA basically gave up all their space travel stuff to private companies. So now the biggest player in space travel is like done, and now it's all private companies like SpaceX. And so we wanted to address how if we left this to private companies, what might it look like for them to manage their own issues in space. And that's where a lot of this experience came from, where you're joining this company to help clean up and they're making it seem like, oh, everything is great, we're doing such a great job, but then by the end of it you realize they're not actually doing what they say they're doing. They're kind of like walking the line about it.
So it's also a lot about corporate greed and whether people really do this. Should we really leave it up to the companies, or should we have some kind of agency? Like nobody is controlling it. There's no natural preserve out in space. Anybody right now can just litter whatever they can afford to shoot up there. So, I mean, when I just got the honor to try out the experience myself, the latest version. And, initially, like I looked out and saw the world, the planet intact. It was beautiful. I had maybe a tiny glimpse of the overview effect, but then it got really annoying to have to take care of this all this space debris. So I'd like to ask you. I mean, we use these transformative experience design frameworks in class, basically, where we work with cognitive shifts, perceptual shifts, and the kind of challenges and conflicts that pose. So how did you, or did you integrate these? How did you do this in this project? Whoever wants to answer this one.
So the biggest thing where we had like a shift was initially the way you think about this company Space Y is, oh, they're doing great things, because that is how they're presenting themselves. And so as you go through experience, you watch like this brand video and they're talking about all the great things they're doing for humanity. And then as soon as you step outside, you start seeing like, oh, there's a bunch of debris, but you don't directly connect it to that company yet. And so as you're collecting the debris, you might notice like there's logos of the company on the debris. So you're starting to think about like, why would their logo be on this random junk in space? And so you're starting to piece together that like, there's more going on here. And then throughout the experience, once you reach the end, they just eject out the debris into space. And that's like that big shift of, I just spent all this time collecting this debris. I thought they were going to actually use it for something, but instead they're sending it out to for somebody else to deal with, as it says in the experience. So that is like the big shift we want people to take away, is like, even though right now it seems like it's all being handled, if we were to leave it to these private companies to deal with, eventually this could happen where without regulation, they'll deal with it with the least cost amount of cost that they can.
So you really give people a glimpse of what could happen, what might happen, and it's clearly something that you couldn't experience otherwise, because most of us will never be able to afford going into space. What are we doing in terms of timing? Okay, we have another minute or two. So if you had a bit more time to work on the project, like which direction would you take it? Who hasn't spoken yet?
I guess if we have more time, we'll think more about the goal and the scope of the whole project. So it will be much more rational and in every part, because throughout some of the user testing, we have some good and bad comments about it, and we have to prioritize which is important to integrate and fixing it. So if we have more time, we will definitely think more about which is more important and which is more immersive for the user they're going to test.
So I think one of the main problems we had is like it can't really make people feel that they're directly impacted by space debris just because when we're living on Earth, we're just like living our normal lives. We don't really have to worry about space debris because it's not directly impacting us. So maybe if we have time, we can also like go deeper into that, maybe have a way to make players feel like they are directly impacted by it. And we can also make it change some like the looks in general about how the environment looks like right now, just because we had feedback about how the Earth still doesn't look as polluted when you go outside. So we can add even more space pollution to like really like, amp it up and make it feel like that it is a real problem.
All right, thanks a lot. Great. So we're kind of halfway through. So what I'd like to do is just a very short, maybe 3-minute or so Zoom and bio break for anybody who needs a quick break. And then we'll be back in just a few minutes. And if you like, you can just continue showing the footage from the last one. All right, I'll see you back in a few minutes. All right, if I could get team 2-1 staying afloat to grab a seat. Oh yeah, sure. Can wait for a bit. Timing's still okay. So we're just waiting for one more team member, so we'll start in just a moment. Okay, why don't we go ahead and just start with the project video? All right, thanks. So let's do quick introductions.
My name is Julian, and I worked on interaction design and implementation in Unity.
My name is Shayla, and I did environmental design, worked with narrative and external media like the website and the poster graphic design.
I'm Asher. I worked on sound design and modeling.
And I'm Richard, and I worked in environment art, level design, and project management as well.
So tell me a bit more about the overall idea of the project. Like what is it about? We've seen a little bit that, okay, somebody's going shopping and so on. So maybe give me a quick overview of the project.
Basically, the world we kind of wanted to go for was almost post-apocalyptic, but mostly about an economic downfall. We wanted to show struggle on every end, kind of low income, not too many friendly faces around, just kind of a corrupt and uncomfortable looking environment, basically.
So why did you choose that, and what do you hope to achieve with this kind of experience?
Yeah, so the reason we chose to speak about poverty is because poverty is something that, unlike most issues that we see on the news, it's something that is almost taken for granted. Like it's there all around us, but it's almost never talked about. It's like people focus on greater issues, which is sure, that is a problem. But then when it's like right under our nose, but then we never notice. So then we wanted to bring this to light. We wanted to find a way to bring this to light. And so then we had chosen a sort of dystopian setting as well to really try and drive forth the message. It's always as if shock the users into the whole aspect of a bleak bleak life, a bleak outlook on everything, and to really drive in the point of poverty across. And so during our development phase, we were actually almost looking at like something of a really kind of cyberpunk kind of setting, because we thought that with the dark landscapes and things like that, that might also bring out a kind of gloomy or like an unknown kind of landscape, which would also resonate with the user, because for them, they don't really understand the concept of this whole poverty, or sure they do in theory, but not in actual practice. So yeah, but then we thought that it might drive away the like the message in a sense, because it was something that the user wouldn't exactly be able to relate to, because we want to look at it in a more modern sense. We want to bring the issue currently that is like with us, rather than look at like a sort of distant kind of possible outlook. Yeah.
I really like the idea that you didn't want it to feel like it's a far away space, but this is really here. This could happen to anybody, basically. So why why use virtual reality for this kind of experience? I mean, we have poor people everywhere, way too many in pretty much every country, including here right now, if you just walk out the street. So why use virtual reality for this?
Like Asher mentioned a little bit, when you see this kind of topic over and over again, particularly if you're someone who watches the news a lot, it's really easy to kind of normalize it. And it's easy to kind of separate it as like, that's them, that's other, this is a different society, that's kind of what they go through. I think by using VR, we're really allowing our users to encompass the person going through the struggle rather than just watching, because watching can be done pretty easily. There's a lot of stories about it as well. And I think we wanted to really just push users into that scenario where they have to think, okay, I can't afford this, but I need to survive.
So tell me a bit more about what's going on in virtual reality. So what do people do, and what are the interesting or challenging decisions they have to make?
So basically, in our virtual reality experience, so the narration starts at like you're someone who doesn't have a lot of money and you have to go get food for yourself. And so the main experience is someone actually walking to a store trying to find something that they could eat for themselves. And then once they've done that, they will meet a little dog on the alleyway, and basically they kind of have to make the difficult decision. Oh, this dog is kind of hungry, but I'm also kind of hungry, and so you kind of have to weigh like if you want to help others, if you want to help yourself, and basically it kind of just stresses like the poverty situation more.
Almost like the magic circle in a game where you put people into an environment, and by accepting to be in there, you play with these rules, and you have limited amount of money, and you can choose what to spend it on, but then you have really hard decisions to face. So you did quite some user testing and got feedback and so on. Can you tell us a bit more about maybe the process, and what feedback you got, and what you changed, improved, or would improve further in the future?
Yes, we got a lot of useful results from the feedback and user testing, and we realized that we could use more improvement in user direction and kind of like making the experience more intuitive, because we were trying hard to focus on making it more immersive and try to strip down UI elements and stuff, but we realized we have to come up with a compromise between immersion and direction, right? Because we want users to be immersed in the world, but they also want to know what's going on. Otherwise, they'll just feel confused and be taken out of that experience completely. So I think that's what we want to try and improve for future iterations. I think that's the kind of feedback that will really help us to better fine tune our immersion aspect much more.
Yeah. So many of the points in our user testing, we had the feedback was like largely positive, and we also saw that we had the choice of whether you could feed the dog or walk away, and we noticed that through our playthroughs, everyone chose the option to feed the dog, and the only person or a few people that didn't simply wanted to see what would happen otherwise, but intuitively they went and they wanted to go and help out the person, I mean the dog, which was the thing in need. So that actually it was nice to see that our message was it really resonated with a lot of people, and it was nice to see our project actually realize itself through the user testing. Also, there were a few glitches that happened, which were pretty interesting and which gave us a sense of direction as to where to go next. So for one of the instances was where one user tossed bread through a wall, which ended up landing in the alleyway. So the user, while coming out of the store with the food and everything to go and feed the dog, they noticed that the bread was lying at the back of the alleyway, an extra piece of bread. So they could actually pick that up and use that to feed the dog, as well as keep their original purchased items, which gave us like a new sense, like a new kind of ending. where we ended up putting the physical food item as well as a dog, saying, congratulations, you've helped out the character in need as well as got yourself to progress to the next day. And certain areas we could improve on was, for example, the store interaction itself, where you purchase the food item. People didn't really know where exactly they had to place the food. Some people kept it in the right, some people didn't keep it exactly on the trigger box. So we noticed that if you could have some kind of sign signaling the exact area to put it, as well as the fact that for money, like you're obviously supposed to pay. So many people asked, where's the change? Because we had a fixed $2 amount which we could give, and many of the prices were like $1.19. So then, so where was the change, as well as having to turn around and look for the money, because people didn't know that after putting the food, they had like $2. So then we had to point it out to them. Look to your left, there's $2 lying there. So perhaps you can grab that and give that to the cashier. And as well as there was one significant area that I found out that we could improve on. So since we're talking about poverty in general, we could, instead of having the user have $2 in the beginning, which they could give to the cashier, we were thinking of going with a different kind of beginning, where the user would actually go out and ask the NPCs for money first before using that in order to purchase the food, which would also strengthen our goal of trying to really bring out the decision of whether to feed the dog or to go, because it's like the user has an additional kind of they have to put in a lot more effort to earn that money, and so it would make our decision that point a lot more stronger. Yeah.
That's a good point. I mean, asking or begging for money is something that most of us might not have done, or hope we will never have to do. But virtual reality provides us with a safe but also immersive and realistic way to really try this out and experience something you couldn't otherwise do. Okay, I think we're at the end of the time for this session for this team. So thanks again, and we have 2 more teams to go. So thanks a lot. So next we have team 2-2, that is Beyond the Ruins is the project title. So yeah, grab a seat. And get these a bit closer, because otherwise you get out of the camera view. All right, so quick introduction.
Okay, hi guys. My name is Riecke Wang, and I'm work on primers and environment and themes design in the project.
Hi guys, my name is Devin. I'm doing the Unity animation and programming in this project.
My name is Jason. My work is programming and the interaction in the VR environment.
Hi, I'm Allison, and I'm work on narrative design, sound editing, and also the video.
I'm Hannah. I'm in charge of the narrative design and the iteration, as well as the documentation.
Great. So let's take a look at the project video, the trailer.
After terrible air raids, the war in this area seems ended. You are the new trainee war reporter from the Alliance Daily, a newspaper office eager to open a new section for their next publishment to report the latest war-related stories. The training is competitive, you haven't got the satisfactory results to submit, and there is little time left. To keep the job, grab the last chance to collect useful information on this after-war battlefield. And maybe, you will find something that makes your career different. The choice is all yours.
So you have a really interesting premise in there. Maybe tell us a bit more. So we got a glimpse of this already from the video.
Actually, at the beginning of semester, we have saw lots of report and news about Afghanistan. And I don't know if you have seen the video on the TikTok. It's about like lots of like civilians are trying to climb up US military plane, but they are finally like falling down once the plane is take off. And so I'm wondering that the war is not happening in the past or in the textbook book, but actually there are still some people are suffering from war even now. So we are thinking about to like have this opportunity to use VR, such a strong platform to provide people and immersion experience to view the consequence of the war. And we would like the player to take from our game is they could understand the cruelty and the sadness of war. Yeah.
Yeah, so basically our player need to like role playing as a war reporter in our game. So why we decided to having like such kind of role is actually we wanna choose a gentle way to help the participant to like reveal all of the war and battlefields. So instead of aggressive way or fighting in the battlefield, we wanna like kind of introduce an objective world to help the participant to understand what is going on the background stories. And because we are really focused on the narrative developments. So in terms of narrative, we might add a lot of things that might subjective. So we having a kind of objective role, but in order to complete this journal, the player has to like make their own decision based on what they feel and receive from all the information we provided within the game. Yes.
So when you step in, I mean, you start as a war reporter, you think your job is just to take pictures, but then you start understanding and reading and hearing a bit more about the different stories. So can you tell me a bit more, like, okay, what unravels and how does that affect the emotion and the user experience? Wants to...
Okay, so we set some element to improve the immersion experiences for the players. The main things is based on the imaginative immersion and the sensory immersion. So for the imaginative immersion, we set narrated a unique story background for the project, and people can search for the items and objects in the game and to explore the whole stories of the project. And we want to use the narrative to attract the people to get the interesting into what happened in the village and what happened to the village after the war. And the next one is we said the role playing for the player to play as a reporter in the game. What we want to they feel is that suits the viewpoint of the war reporter to explore what happened in the village. And we have provided some element before we start the game, like the missing letter and the press post. What we want to provide the experiences is that to give the player a kind of sense of participation to the game. And what else? Can I talk about something? Well, I think the major like users behavior shift will happen in the end of the game, like when they like searching around and understand what is going on in this small town, they will understand, oh, there is a character called Charles, and in the end of game you will see this man is suffering from the burning house, and you will make a decision to save this man's life, or you want to like leave, because your camera is very expensive. You won't want its break once you enter the house and save this guy. So I think
once the player made the moral choice in the end, they kind of like have the behavior shift. Yeah.
Okay, so could you please just repeat the question a little bit?
I think you answered already quite well. So there, basically, in a way, a lot leads up to the final decision. Basically, are you still just the war reporter, or did you develop a connection with the story that you actually want to help people in there? So for me, when I tried it out, it was actually, yeah, it went deeper than often expect with virtual reality to happen. So I think there's really nice work in there. There's a dog in there. Like, what's the role of the dog?
The role of the dog is to guide people. So when people doing the searching, maybe they'll feel lost in the game. So they will ask where I'm going, where should I going? So we just tell people to try to find the dog's waiting position, and you will find it. The dog's role is to guide people.
Actually, there is a behind story about the dog. Yeah, if you like develop the story, you will figure out that the Charlie is actually the owner of the dog. Yeah, so the dog is seems to like leading the player, but actually he's finding the owner. Yeah.
So the dog is basically trying to lure you to rescue its owner. Yeah, beautiful story. So there's a couple of different letters in there and beautiful writing. Like, how did you come up with this? And I think you mentioned it's also based on some research that you did. And
She came up with those letters.
Okay. Yeah, Jason is in charge of program. Yeah.
Okay, I'll ask you something about program.
So, so Alison and I came to with a narrative design. So we did a lot of research regard to the World War II, and we saw a lot of the soldier diaries. So we kind of mimic what the writing style of what they wrote to try to make the diary like looks more realistic. And for like the whole stories, so. In terms of like the narrative, we also have like the narrative arc and like the resolution of the story. So we kind of want to like introduce the story like gradually into the participants, so they don't feel like rush or some sudden dramatic change. So that's how we decided to put all these diary scenes and the narrative notes around it and allow them to searching around to find the story gradually, step by step. Yes.
Yeah, it really had some authenticity in the writing, which I really appreciated. All right, now I have a question for you. So used virtual reality, like what aspects, or especially technical aspects in this case, did you really, like how did you design the virtual environment to really support the overall goal of the story?
Like in the beginning, we used the UI interaction for people to read those notes. And then we feel like the UI interaction doesn't really like make people immersive because like they're just choosing on our board. But so like we changed the interaction to hover on the notes to see the content. Yeah. So in this way, it's more immersive for the players. And oh, the voiceover. Oh, because in the first version, our letter is like kind of long. So the player, some players may not have the patience to read all the stories on the note. With the voiceover, like the player will know what the character is thinking after reading the note. So even if they didn't finish reading the note, they still know like what's the what's the note about, and the story and the feeling of the character.
What are we doing in terms of timing? Oh, I think we're at the end of the time. All right, one quick question. Like if you had a bit more time, what would you change? What would you improve?
So, because our project is really focused on the narrative development, so we are kind of finding ways that can incorporate the VR technology with the narrative more smoothly. So currently we having like text elements, those visual things, and we're trying to add in some sound elements to facilitate like participant to understand the overall things. So if we have more time, we may like kind of explore alternative multimedia elements to support the story developments. Yes.
Also, if we have more time, we may think about to make the UI guide more obvious. So because we find some player may ignore the our red motif. So that's what we think about. And yeah, that's all. Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot. Great. Last but not least, we have one more project and team to go. Team 2-3, Lenny the Leaf. And people are coming in construction gear already. All right, let's do quick introductions.
Hello, my name is Justin. I am the story developer and one of the Unity developers as well.
I'm Kenshin. I'm taking charge in the video and map prototype.
Hi, my name is Andrea, and I focus on modeling the character and some physical elements and narrative.
My name's Candy. I was responsible for the design, illustrations, and 3D modeling.
My name is Kai. I took care of the voice for Lenny the Leaf. I was actually Lenny the Leaf. And I also helped a little bit with the Unity scripts.
All right, cool. All right, let's take a look at the project trailer.
Hello, we are Birch Buddies, the world's finest manufacturers of plastic containers. Here at Birch Buddies, we believe affordable and accessible containers are a must, so we're expanding our business to new areas. We need you to scout out our future building plot and sign off on our construction plans. Once you arrive at our facilities, you will be able to man one of our top-of-the-line surveying robots, which is already placed near the intended building location. Thank you for your time, and we'll be looking forward to working with you.
All right, so you basically tell people, you put them directly into the position, you sign up for this, and then what do people need to do in the experience?
So basically, we kind of like really focused on not just the immersion when it comes to the VR. We really wanted to ease people into it with like when they first come, we'll start acting already. So we start acting as we are the management team. We need you to start helping us survey this area. So basically we're trying to build this new location in this kind of foresty dying area. And we need some kind of surveyor to go scout out the area, see if it's good for us and there's no living things in the area. So that way we can start building. And essentially after that whole thing is done, they need to sign off on it using one of our flyers that we have somewhere over there. And then that gives us authority to kind of destroy the whole area and start building, essentially.
Yeah, I sense some dark humor and sarcasm in there. So what happens then once you get in? So tell us a bit more about the experience. You can also maybe explain what's going on in the video.
So what we kind of wanted to do with the trailer video and the kind of before you get into the game is not give anything away, and just kind of make it seem like, you know, you're actually just there to be a construction surveyor and there's nothing going on. But as you can see here with the environment, you know, it's a dead forest and kind of the, you know, with the impact, like there's been a lot of deforestation this year with the forest fires we had during the summer. And then obviously, you know, with that, there's a loss of roots and then there's a lot of the flooding and the mudslides that we had a little bit earlier this semester. So we kind of wanted to make people think about the impact that they could have on the environment. So you actually need this little seedling called Lenny the Leaf. So you go through the forest. He needs water and fresh soil. So you do that and then he grows up. And then so kind of the goal we were going for is that once you go through the whole experience and you kind of bond a little bit with Lenny, or maybe you feel like protecting him, Do you still, do you still really want to sign off to make sure that you destroy the area and kind of industrialize it?
Basically, the idea is that you develop compassion and empathy with the little Lenny, the leaf, kind of the last remaining. It's kind of like the Lorax, basically of the tree, and then at the end you ask people the decision. But that's outside of virtual reality, basically. So once you get out, then you get to choose. Okay, are you okay? Basically, that we destroy everything. Yeah, nice. So why use virtual reality for this kind of experience? I mean, it also could be a nice story.
Well, in real life, it's kind of hard to get like a talking leaf to start working. So we kind of thought like virtual reality would be like one of the easiest way to like really feel like you're in the forest and also like with the talking leaf, because as of now, like you don't really go up to a tree and hug it. I don't think any of us really do. We don't really think it doesn't really it doesn't really breathe. It doesn't really cry. I know sometimes I walk behind a tree and I just slap the leaf. Like imagine you do that to a person, you'd be like, what the hell's wrong with you, man? But like if the tree had a voice, had a feeling, like would you really be inclined to do that? I don't really think so. So we kind of thought VR would be a perfect area to like be able to interact with the tree, kind of help it grow and see it as a person in a way.
So yeah, actually just to add on to that, it kind of also plays into our setting. So this is kind of, the dust is actually just like a toxic fog. So we actually get you to go into like a telepresence robot, to actually be there, but not be there at the same time. So you're just manning a robot that's there. If you've seen Elon Musk's like Tesla bots, kind of like that, except you control it. But yeah, so that was also kind of why we wanted to use VR to kind of play more into the narrative.
Yeah, I thought it was an elegant way to get people to put on the VR headset, because you're not putting on VR headset, but you're actually being a telepresence robot, because it's just way too dangerous and toxic to go in there. So you tried it, you had a lot of people try it out right now, and you had earlier testing during the last few weeks. What did you learn from this, and how did you incorporate this to come to where you're currently at, or where you would want to go with this in the future?
So based on the feedback that we got today, we found out like we cannot make the map a little bit too big, and there's a lot of different items inside the map, and they're interactable. But the problem is that this will kind of misunderstand the players when they working inside the map. So they think that these things can interact. This might be something that get useful, but actually it's just kind of the trash that we leave all around the ground. So sometimes they will just miss the things that we want them really focus on, like the lining. So sometimes they just don't know what exactly where it had. And also for the end part of our story, the path of our design is kind of too long. So when players work through it, it takes them a lot of time, and there's nothing new happen during that time. So it's kind of make the players feel boring about that.
People signed off on having the basically the area destructed in the end. Did anybody?
There was actually 2 people who signed off on it. They like really just like, all right, just like threw it away, really. But like we kind of played with around with the idea. Like Andrea is the one who kind of put a bunch of like jargon on the paper. Like I even read it. I'm like, I don't know what the hell this actually is. Like it could be anything. And then I kind of tried to have fun with it. And like 3 times throughout the paper, I wrote, "You will kill Lenny. You will kill Lenny. You will kill Lenny," just to see if people will actually read it. A few people did. I know Annoy, when he tried it, even if like the kind of immersion through the VR wasn't as successful, there was kind of some breaks in. He really struggled trying to like trying to sign it, because like there's nothing really that hurts him as a person, but there's Lenny, who now breathes, talks, has a finally fully grown as well. So there was that struggle as well.
Yeah, I like the idea that you're basically testing whether the experience works right afterwards. So basically there's a pre-experience there in VR, and then afterwards that's the litmus test basically. Are people okay? Did it really work? I mean, basically if your experience worked, then many people will be reluctant to sign off on this. What are we doing in terms of timing? Okay. No, I think you also tried out the experience. What was your user experience like?
As he just said that I did face the dilemma at the very end, which was something that I didn't expect. The VR experience was overall okay, but the question at the end was because it's for me it was just a wasteland that I could sign off for people to do construction there, but still there's Lenny who is still living and might be able to repopulate. So it was a very hard decision to make, which was really immersive.
So I think it's interesting that we have a virtual experience, but then there's a real decision, and then you actually have to talk to, like when I just tried it out also, I got asked like, are you going to sign off? And then I said like, no, and they were like, yeah, why not? So basically, so it's interesting because you almost have to take ownership and agency and really argue and take a stance against destruction, which is interesting. So, I mean, there is a virtual experience, but I think really what happens is especially afterwards when the question is really, okay, are you gonna accommodate? Are you gonna change your view? And do you stand up for not destructing the forest? Is there anything else you want to share about the experience? Any question I did not ask you?
I guess at the end, when it comes to signing off, it really goes to like kind of show and or encapsulate how dramatic of an impact you can have on the environment in such a like a small, like seemingly like what's it called, unimportant event. Just signing off. It's like we sign off every time you go on like an Apple like thing, it says read the terms and agreements, you sign off on it. Every time you throw something away, it's like these small things that really do have an impact on the environment. And I feel like that final signing off on the contract really kind of puts a tab on it or something.
Yeah, maybe quite literally, but there are so many things in our world where we kind of sign off and are like, yeah, okay, whatever, that we kind of accept. So I really appreciate the idea of trying to get people to really reflect on this. All right, thanks so much. I think what I'd like to do is just to get everybody up here briefly, so we can, for our final applause. So if you can go get up there, just all. John, you see. And just for a final applause, so you can see everybody who was involved in this. Okay, so I'm really super proud of the team that despite COVID, despite being everything is a bit more complicated, we were still able to do a showcase. Really appreciate all the great work. Also, a big thanks to Anoy, my wonderful TA. Helped solve a lot of technical challenges and was really super helpful in making this class happen. So thanks again to everybody. And if anybody's interested in trying out the experience and seeing what it's like and so on, so there will be one more step basically for the students to do. So we'll ask them to do a project video that it goes into a bit more detail. And then if people are more than welcome to put their experiences online, share them and so on, we'll go over all of that in class then next week. All right, thanks so much. And this is the end of the Zoom session. So thanks everybody. All right. Can you end Zoom basically? Oh yes.